66 million years ago, a rock the size of a mountain missed. Not the Earth, it hit the Earth, it missed something much smaller and much more important, it missed by about 30 minutes. 30 minutes of planetary rotation, that is the entire margin. Half an hour earlier or half an hour later and that same asteroid lands in deep ocean instead of shallow water. The dinosaurs walk away from it, and you never happen at all. So let's take those 30 minutes back, let's run the other timeline. But before we do, I want you to actually picture it, not a movie, not a theme park, your street, the road outside the window you are sitting near right now. Most people picture the same scene, a Tyrannosaurus wedged between two skyscrapers, cars flipping, people screaming. It is a fun image, it is also completely wrong. Because if the dinosaurs never went extinct, there is no skyscraper, there is no road, there is no window, and there is nobody standing at it. That is the part almost nobody thinks about. This is not really a question about lizards surviving, it is a question about whether we ever arrive. So hold that thought and tell me something first. Where are you watching this from? Put your country in the comments. I am asking for a real reason. Because wherever you are right now, an apartment in London, a truck in Texas, a rooftop in Manila, a bus in Lagos, a bedroom in Delhi, something was standing on that exact patch of ground 66 million years ago. Your neighborhood has a prehistoric address, almost nobody ever learns theirs. And in the timeline we are about to build, whatever was standing there never left. Now stay with the image for one more second. You are looking out at your street. In the other timeline, that street is a floodplain, ferns instead of grass because grass has barely gotten started, conifers instead of oaks. Something enormous is drinking at the water's edge, and it is not afraid of anything. And here is the strange part. Neither are you, because in that world you are not a person watching from a window. You would be a mouse-sized animal in a burrow under that floodplain if you exist at all, waiting for dark. Does that feel like a downgrade? Hold on to that feeling. We are going to come back to it and it is going to flip completely. First, we have to get the science right. A what if is only as good as the what. For most of the 20th century, nobody actually knew what killed the dinosaurs. Disease, climate, bad luck, take your pick. Then in 1980, a physicist named Luis Alvarez and his son, the geologist Walter Alvarez, found something they could not explain. A thin band of clay laid down at exactly the moment the dinosaurs vanished, showing up at sites across the planet. That clay was loaded with iridium. Iridium is rare in Earth's crust, it is common in asteroids. Their conclusion was simple and at the time ridiculous: something enormous hit us. The scientific community pushed back hard for a decade, then geologists found the crater buried under the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, 180 kilometers wide. The Alvarez father and son were right. But the detail that matters most for our timeline came much later. In 2017, two researchers at Tohoku University in Japan, Kunio Kaiho and Naga Ashima, published a study asking a question nobody had really pushed on before: not what hit us, where it hit us. Because the asteroid itself did not kill the dinosaurs, not directly. What killed them was what the impact threw into the sky. The rock landed on a shallow seabed packed with sulfur-rich minerals and hydrocarbons. Vaporizing that seabed launched enormous volumes of soot and sulfate aerosols into the upper atmosphere. Sunlight dropped, global temperatures fell, photosynthesis stalled. The world went dark and cold for years. Kaiho and Ashima calculated something remarkable. Only around 13% of Earth's surface was made of the kind of rock that could produce that much aerosol. Read that number again, 13%. Which means roughly 87% of the planet was a survivable target. 87% of possible impact sites give you a catastrophe, a horrifying decade, and then a recovery. So what happens if it lands in the deep Pacific instead? The tsunami is unimaginable, coastlines are erased, millions of animals die in a matter of hours. It is one of the worst days in the history of life. And then the sky clears, and the survivors get on with it. Because here is the thing that surprises people most. The dinosaurs were not on their way out. Steve Brusette, a paleontologist at the University of Edinburgh, has spent years pushing back on the old story that dinosaurs were a fading dynasty finished off by a lucky rock. The fossil record he and others have assembled shows the opposite. Right up until the final layer, they were diverse, widespread, and thriving. They did not die of old age, they were interrupted. So in our timeline, the interruption never comes, the Cretaceous just keeps going. Which brings us to the animals nobody was watching, us. Gregory Wilson Mantilla at the University of Washington has spent years working the rocks of Hell Creek in Montana, right across the boundary layer. His work shows mammals were already there before the impact, already diversifying, already trying things. They were just tiny, almost all of them small, nocturnal, insect-eating, hiding. Then the boundary hits, and within a few 100,000 years, mammals do something they had never managed in 150 million years of existence. They get big. Not because they suddenly got clever, because the ceiling was gone. Every large-body niche on Earth had been occupied by dinosaurs for longer than mammals had existed. Then, in the space of a few years, every single one of those niches emptied at once. And in our timeline, that never happens, the ceiling stays. So what does the year 2026 look like on a planet where the dinosaurs were never interrupted? Start with the obvious, there are still dinosaurs, but they are not the ones from the museum. 66 million more years of evolution is not a pause button, it is longer than the entire history of primates. Tyrannosaurus is as ancient to them as it is to us. Whatever is out there now is something we have no name for. The continents keep drifting. India still slams into Asia and the Himalayas still rise, grasslands still spread and the world still dries out, ice ages still come. Which means dinosaurs face the same pressures that shaped mammals. Cold, open plains, seasonal food, and they meet them with a body plan that was already good at endothermy, already feathered, already built for speed. So would any of them get smart? This is where it gets fun, because a real paleontologist actually did the work. In 1982, Dale Russell, curator at the National Museum of Canada, took a small predatory dinosaur called Troodon, an animal with one of the highest brain-to-body ratios of any dinosaur, forward-facing eyes and grasping hands. He asked what it might look like after tens of millions more years of selection for intelligence. Then, with taxidermist Ron Seguin, he built it, a physical model, the Dinosaurid. Upright, tailless, green-skinned, big skull, 3 fingers, standing there in a museum looking uncomfortably like a person. It became one of the most famous images in paleontology and one of the most criticized. The British paleontologist Darren Naish wrote what is probably the sharpest response to it. His argument is straightforward. Russell built a human. He took a dinosaur, stood it upright, deleted the tail, and rebuilt it around a shape that primates arrived at for reasons specific to primates. There is no strong reason a brilliant dinosaur would abandon a horizontal posture that had worked for 160 million years. Naish suggested something far less comfortable to look at, still crouched, still balanced by a tail, still beaked, just very, very clever. Which raises a genuinely unsettling possibility. Intelligence like ours might not need a human shape at all, it might not even be rare, it might just be waiting on an opening. And in this timeline, we are not the ones who get it. Now come back to your street, the floodplain, the thing drinking at the water's edge. You are not watching this video, not because you died, but because the lineage that would eventually produce primates never got the room to try. Somewhere under that soil there is a small warm-blooded animal with excellent hearing and good night vision, doing what mammals did for 150 million years. Surviving quietly, successfully, anonymously. The entire human story, every language, every city, every song, every argument you have ever had, sits inside a gap that only opened because a rock hit the wrong 13% of the planet. That is the answer most people expect. It is a story about how close we came to never existing. But there is one more thing, and it changes the whole question. Because the premise was wrong from the start. Dinosaurs never went extinct. Look outside right now, the sparrow on the wire, the pigeon on the ledge. The crow watching the traffic like it is doing math, which, by the way, it sometimes is. Those are dinosaurs, not relatives of dinosaurs, not descendants in a loose poetic sense. Living theropod dinosaurs in the same lineage as Velociraptor with hollow bones, wishbones, feathers, and three-toed feet. There are roughly 11,000 species of bird alive today. There are around 6,400 species of mammal. By that count, we are not living in the age of mammals. We are living in a world that is still, quietly, run by dinosaurs. They just changed shape while we were not looking. So the question was never what if dinosaurs never went extinct. The question is why we spent our whole lives standing next to them and calling them something else. 66 million years ago, a rock the size of a mountain missed. It missed the birds, and they have been standing outside your window ever since, waiting for you to notice.